the potters. Those risks and the impact of harmful matters are clearly mentioned on the material safety data sheets. Here I show you the material safety data sheet of silica. That document is mandatory. We have to have them in our studio to be fully aware of the potential toxicity in case of accidental or chronic exposition. And this is exactly the first recommendation I give to my students. For any material you use, have and read carefully the MSDS. Look here, in section 2, you'll find the potential health effects clearly. Inhalation. Clearly, inhalation is the main risk, but look, your eyes can also be affected. Here, eye contact may cause abrasion of the cornea. Section number 8 is not illustrated in my slide. Nevertheless, it should also attract your attention as it describes the personal protection you should wear. In this case, it is mainly an adapted respiratory equipment called an FFP3 mask. Section 11 provides us with toxicological information, and it covers all the health problems that can appear because of inhaling silica, like silicosis, cancer, autoimmune diseases, tuberculosis, kidney disease, and non-malignant respiratory diseases. So not every raw material is risky, of course not, but some are much more than we think. So better safe than sorry. Read and remember the relevant information. For each raw material in your stock, I strongly recommend to collect these MSDS and read sections 2, 8, and 11. My motivation in teaching that matter comes straight from many testimonies of potters seriously affected by chronic contacts of toxic materials, and it is mainly inhalation. For some of them, I can just speak in the name because they are no longer with us, and look around you and try to figure out how, among your acquaintance, how many of them passed away before the age and how many are not in good shape. I was dramatically shocked when I did that exercise for myself. Thanks to the MSDS, you will find all health hazards. These health hazards must clearly be identified by a pictogram and a related standard international sentence, like toxic if swallowed, toxic if inhaled, harmful if swallowed, harmful if inhaled. H, the letter H means hazard, and the number is also an international standard. 2 points good to know. The lower the number, the higher the danger. And the difference between toxic and harmful is only the doses. What can be those materials? Are they that exotic or commonly used? You might be surprised to see the following information for cobalt carbonate. I'm sorry, there is a part here missing, but this is cobalt carbonate, this is nickel carbonate, and this is vanadium oxide. So it's written here in French, but you see the pictograms and the long list of hazard sentences. It gives you already an idea. That's why I insist a lot in my teaching on the necessity to wear the individual protection equipment, wear a dust mask when working with toxic materials, and protective gloves is to be considered with some materials. Be aware that kiln exhausts can be very toxic, and you should not breathe them. That specific risk is indeed not mentioned in the MSDS because it comes from material transformation when firing them. That means that some raw materials present an early zero risk when handling them, but a very high risk during the firing because of the acids contained in the fumes. For example, raw material containing important percentages of fluorine will produce hydrofluoric acid, damaging your windows, but also your teeth and your bones. And of course, many other acids come out of a kiln. Moreover, they combine, making more dangerous fume cocktails. Not only acids can volatilize, but also heavy metals like lead, antimony, and so on. So where do you install your kiln is a must-think question. Is it outside the studio? But if not, be sure to actively evacuate the kiln fumes out of the place. These are only some of the recommendations I think I must give to my students. I consider that it's my duty as a teacher to make this information run in the ceramics world. My students, indeed, transfer all of it when they themselves teach in art schools and private studios. The other issue I focus on is the food contact ability and durability of our tableware. Just to illustrate it, I show you two pictures of the same piece. The one on the left side is the original piece, and the one on the right is the same piece after only 24 hours contact with citric acid. The decoloration is so intense that it proves the instability of that specific glaze. But instability cannot always be demonstrated with the naked eyes. In this case, no alteration of the color was seen after the acid contact, but the lab analysis revealed an important leaching of cobalt, aluminium, and surprisingly some arsenic, all of them above the recommendations. Here again, since I started to communicate about the impact of heavy metals migration in food and the well-known adverse effects on our health, I got several, sometimes very moving testimonies of intoxication cases. Many are evidently bound to lead migration, but lead is not the only poisoning element that can impact our health. Far from that. The lead and cadmium intoxication from ceramics is so obvious that the European Community has issued a regulation in 1984 aiming at reducing the tolerable migration of both elements in food. 1984? Yes, 40 years back already. But since then, many toxicological studies, much more recent, have pointed out the detrimental impact of lead on the central nervous system. As a consequence, the European Food Safety Authority suggests to reduce the migration of lead from ceramics 400 times compared to what was decided in 1984. Yes, 400 times. Let's have a look. These are current publications. A source of poisoning was identified from a glaze on a ceramic jug, from which the patient had drank tea with lemon for 3 months. A souvenir of Rhodes, a ceramic mug with lead-containing glaze, was identified as the source of the lead poisoning, the lead dissolving into hot tea put in the mug. A ceramic cup from Greece was traced as the source of the lead, the patients having regularly for over 2.5 months drunk lemon instant tea from it. What does it mean? It means that many toxicity assumptions need to be updated. The case of lead intoxication is emblematic in a way. The acute toxicity is quite low. The concern is really the chronic toxicity. And how is this evaluated? partially using lab animals. Lab rats are commonly used, but how can we accurately determine a toxic dose and period for long-term exposition in human beings from experiments made on lab rats who live no more than 1 year? It takes time to determine that toxicity. Epidemiological studies are needed to increase our knowledge, and a new scientific area, epidemiology, is establishing the link between material chronic exposition and some disease occurrence. On this slide, you can see what the current limits are for in Europe, so since 1984, for flatware, for hollowware, and for cookware, for lead and cadmium, respectively. A full range of correlations has strongly been proven, and this makes the European Food Safety Authority or agency to recommend to limit the migration of numerous elements from ceramics. Tolerable leaching values are currently discussed for lead, cadmium, aluminium, cobalt, arsenic, barium, vanadium, antimony, chromium, and nickel. And tolerable leaching values, however, the European regulation has not yet been adapted to the EFSA advice. It's a matter of time. We know Benelux will impose more stringent limitations in approximately a year of time. France does already require a control on arsenic, cobalt, and aluminium. And in Holland, the list is quite much longer. All pieces that do not meet these limitations cannot be sold. The French administration takes this concern more seriously than ever. These reinforced policies make us optimistic regarding this public health issue. Now, another critical question arises. When you see that some elements are controlled in some countries and not in others, what is really the nature of stable glaze? We consider that they have to resist to chemical attacks, and acid or alkaline attacks are not identical. And they also must have a high mechanical resistance. So how can we sure to produce them? The answer is chemistry. Know the chemistry of glazes and the role of each component on their stability. Know the interactions to avoid. And depending on the inputs in your glaze, know the proportions you should respect. Valuable information can be found in the specialized literature. We learned a lot from Hesselbeth and Roy expertise publication, Matt Katz's workshops, Kronberg scientific articles, Navarro glass reference book, and others too. There is a list of some of them here. And I have also to mention our own lab analysis. All the valuable information we could gather is included in my teaching ceramics technology. It's synthesized in a calculation program, an Excel calculator that can predict the glaze stability before you make it analyzed in a lab. The prediction we can establish has always been confirmed by lab analysis. By the way, you probably noticed that I more and more often say we instead of I when discussing the glaze stability chapter. This is because my husband, Eric, who is a chemical engineer and who reads all available publications, made the stable glaze calculator, and he teaches that matter too. We further assist potters and ceramic artists analyzing their pieces in a lab using ICPMS equipment. And here I show you the results of such an analysis coming from the lab, you can notice that this analysis is not limited to the toxic elements that may be required to meet the regulation, but it includes 28 elements. Why do we track the leaching of constitutional oxides, those that are part of the glass structure, such as silica, calcium, boron, zinc, or sodium? Because this allows us not only to decide if a piece is safe in terms of migration of toxic elements, but also evaluate its global stability. As a conclusion to this presentation about the teaching of ceramic technology, which I link to its health aspects, we are responsible as teachers to provide all necessary information for the potters to protect themselves and produce stable pieces with no leaching problem. This is our logo. That logo is used by the ceramists that have tested their glazes in our lab to attest their stability and to promote their products on the market as safe and durable pieces. We think that doing this, we contribute actively and positively to the improvement of knowledge in that matter. And don't think that your creativity will be reduced. The opposite often happens. And it's very funny because I made exactly 28 slides. It seems to be a magic number. Now, more seriously, thank you, Madhur Sen and Falguni Bhatt, for inviting me and give me this opportunity to share a deep concern. Thank you, Kshitija, for the technical support, and thanks for having me at the Indian Ceramic Art Foundation.
Wow, thank you so much. Many, many thanks, Joelle, for such an informative presentation. And I'm sure we will all be looking at our studio in a very different light now. So, members, if any of you have any questions, are we okay to take it on? Joelle, are you okay with questions?
Of course, I'm okay. I just tried to stop the sharing, but it doesn't
okay.
work.
Let it be, no problem. All right.
Hi, Jolie. Kshitija here. I have a question.
Okay.
So when you're doing glazing, there is a lot of glaze that kind of, while washing and all, it just goes off. How do you, of course, that also affects the environment. There's a lot of wastage. How can one avoid that, and how can one just take care of these, the chemicals getting mixed in the earth, or just flowing back to the earth? Are you getting my point?
I'm not sure I understood really well the question. So maybe, Madhur, can you say it again?
I think Kshitija is trying to ask that when we use the glazes in our studio and the raw material, the water and the excess things which is going back to the Mother Earth, does it affect the environment like that?
Of course.
Is that true? Is that what you're asking, Kshitija?
Yeah, and how does she avoid that, or how does she take care of all of these things?
How do I manage that? Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I think she got locked out.
Okay.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Can you just message her and check?
I'll just check with her. 1 second. Yeah, she's trying to get back. Get in. Just a second, guys. Sorry, she's trying. Do you have the link with you? Just get into that.
Let me ask the people to be patient 1 minute.
1 minute. Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. We are waiting. Just use the last link.
I know. I go back into WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Wait. I'm sorry. I really have a connection problem. Oh, yes. I have to close the window and.
Yeah, when you close the window, it went off actually. I'm sending you in your email right now.
No. I'm on it. It's okay.
Okay.
उसका कॉल चल रहा है क्या मीर का तो
Huh? Somebody saying something?
I'm here.
You're there?
You can tell me join. Yeah.
There you are. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Morning in progress. Again, to the question that I was asked about solid waste.
Yeah.
No, my microphone.
She's still
I have to stop this.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good, Joelle. We can see you here.
Yeah, it's okay. You hear me?
Yeah, it's all okay.
I'm sorry for this technical incident. So I answer back to the question that was about waste, the studio waste.
Yeah.
yes.
So I try first to minimize the studio waste. It is through several things. First, when I make tests, I used to make tests on only 10 grams. I bought especially a very accurate balance to be able to do this. Second, when I prepare larger batches of glaze, I always rinse everything with a spray, and it allows me to collect most of the glaze back in the bucket. So it minimizes the waste too. But for the waste that I cannot avoid, I collect everything in a special waste pot, let's say, and I file that to make an inert glaze with it, or I use it in a waste glaze on non-functional pieces. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Because of course it has a very important impact on the environment. The thing is, if it was only maybe, I don't know, 50 potters for whole New Delhi, it would not be maybe a big problem, but there are a lot of ceramic studio now, and it expands, so it makes, when you add all the waste, it makes high quantities. And all those are heavy metals. It took energy, time, and these are natural resources. We should not spread it in the nature just like this. I hope you are happy with my answer.
Yeah. I also have, anyone else has a question? Because I have another question for you again. This magic, a lot of people collect this magic glaze, whatever is left over. So that also sometimes gives you allergies and all. So have you ever faced or heard of something like this? Or do you get it tested before using it? Because not every time you get a glaze, you end up testing? Because in India, we really don't, we make our own glazes. They are hardly 100-gram glazes. We are not sure what are the testing results. So is there any particular combination that one should avoid? Like if you're saying alumina and maybe any other chemicals.
Yeah, it's more complex than that. You know, I cannot give you an answer, a really good and complete answer. It's just 1 or 2 minutes. For example, there is one combination that is really completely crazy. It is copper and lead. Copper is known to be a very strong destabilizer. I don't know the right word in English. It doesn't stabilize, it makes the contrary effect. You say destabilizer, unstabilizer, it's destabilizes. Okay. And when you combine it with lead, it demultiplies the leaching of lead, which is already unavoidable once you put lead in a glaze. You understand? This is a very devil combination, but other combinations are to avoid too. If you put, for example, zinc in a glaze, you should combine it with calcium and not with magnesium. And there are many, many things to know about that, also about proportions in a glaze. And that's why I think that the knowledge of chemistry is so important when we make ceramics, because once you are firing clay and firing glazes, you make chemistry.
Yeah, true. We
Hello?
have a question asking by, do you conduct any in-depth online teaching program for glaze chemistry?
I conduct online, yes, I conduct online programs for glaze chemistry. I do it in the French language, but I just asked yesterday my husband, Eric, who is much better in English than I, if I was asked just this question today, what could be his answer? And he said that he could do that.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
Joelle, what would you say about Raku
Hello?
fire? How hazardous is that?
About the raku.
Yeah,
Uh,
Raku smoke which we inhale.
Inhaling the smoke of raku is
Yeah, when
just
we are
not a good
doing, yeah,
idea.
just
No, no,
oh,
no. Inhaling any kind of fume coming from a ceramic firing is just a very bad idea. Like I said in my presentation, you have lots of acids and heavy metals that come out in the fumes. And when you breathe that, it can seriously damage your health. The very hard things in all that health concern is that in ceramics we nearly don't know acute toxicity. It's always chronic toxicity. It is because there is a kind of accumulation while breathing or while eating, but for us it's mainly breathing or also skin contact, and then it affects our health. And that's what I said. I have so many testimonies of people being deeply affected or by manipulating those raw materials, or by inhaling the fumes, or also now by food non-safe surfaces, that it's really a public health concern, you know, because our body, our immune system is not meant to resist all those things. Our immune system was elaborated during thousands and thousands of years but not against those type of aggressions. And you know, even for myself, in even why I wear gloves since 30 years, because from the very beginning, my husband said to me, wear a mask, wear gloves. And even when doing that, I had a skin sensibilization on my hands. And when I go abroad to work in festivals and so on, the first thing I have to do is to wedge the clays, the different clays we can have, and I have to choose the clay with which I'm going to work, depending on what my skin says. Is it possible or not? I cannot more choose about the color or other visual aspects of the clay. I have to take into account what my skin says. So yeah.
So the mask is mandatory, which
Yeah.
I don't think in your
FFP3 mask. It can be small masks like this.
There
This
is
is
also
just
written.
an example, but it must be FFP3. FFP3. And then the first thing you have to do in the studio too is try to avoid as much as possible the production of poussière, how you call that, poussière, of dust, yeah. The production of dust must clearly be avoided because it makes very thin particles hanging in the air. You sometimes can see them when there is a sun ray. And these particles are so thin that they go inside the lungs. And you know what clay makes when you put that in the water.
Yeah.
And our lungs are not dry. So it makes like barbiturate in the lungs. So that's the beginning of the problems, because you cannot open your lungs and clean them. It never goes outside. So having a little bit dust in our lungs, everybody has that. But when you are very often exposed to that kind of dust, well, it can just be more and more. At a certain point, you will develop respiratory disease or a cancer or tuberculosis, all the kinds of things I showed you in the MSDS about silica. It's the same for all the feldspars. They contain a quite high quantity of silica, and that's all this inhaling is really a problem. So try to keep your studio as clean as possible. Never use a vacuum in the studio, but wash with water to trap the dust, you know. For me, my how you call that, un tablier, the thing we wear to protect our clothes, how you call that?
Apron?
Thank you, an apron. I need some help for the words. I'm sorry, but your
Our
apron.
aprons are the culprit too.
Sorry.
I said sometimes the aprons are the culprit, because if you don't wash them regularly, you've had it. It's all layers of all the clay and glazes
But
and
it's stupid to wear a dirty apron, because when the clay dries on your apron and you move, you immediately
all the dust.
create a lot of this very thin dust, and you will breathe it for hours. So an apron is made to protect your clothes, but if it's stupid to protect your clothes and not your lungs, in one word. Because your clothes, you can wash them. Your lungs, you cannot. You understand? And in I don't know in India but organic food is also very trendy in Europe. And when people eat organic food in a plate that leaches cobalt or arsenic, I don't understand.
Hello.
Yeah, Vinay?
Hi. Hi, this is Vinay. So, can you please, after this session, share the details of the workshop and maybe email ID for the further queries, Gliss Chemistry Workshop?
Give an introduction to the workshops.
Yeah, details. So then we can know what all we are going to learn and how to
Okay.
enroll, what are the
Well,
other details.
I currently propose 3 workshops, so we'll have to give us a little bit time to translate everything in English. Then my husband speaks very fluently, but we'll have to translate the text. I teach ceramics technology for more than 25 years now. And since I'm teaching online, I divide it in 3 main blocks. One block is for everybody, is 3 video conferences about ceramic health and environment, where we discuss just what I explained, but also where come our materials from, how are they processed, and so on. So it helps to make better choices in terms of implementing your studio, in terms of changing some things in your studio to have a better quality of life in the studio, and also make better choices considering having at least a little knowledge of our raw materials. Then the second block is chemistry. Second block is chemistry, and there you will learn how to go from a recipe of a glaze to the chemical formula. Don't be afraid. It can be very funny. Because personally, I explain with all kinds of examples, but very easy examples, and with images. In fact, I explain a lot with images the things that you need to know. For example, when you put sodium or potassium, you call potassium in English?
Yes, 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 yes.
In a glaze, well, they are linked in the rest of the glaze only with 1 electron. You know, and if you put calcium or magnesium, it's linked with 2 electrons. It makes bridges. You understand the difference? So
Yes,
if
yes.
you want more resistance in your glaze, put a good quantity of calcium or magnesium, but you also need the other kind, sodium and potassium, because it begins the melting.
Yes.
So you have to understand, in fact, what happens in the micro world, in microscopic world. And so when you compose your glazes, it's really like a game, a Lego game. You know, Lego,
Yes.
L-E-G-O.
Lego.
Oh.
Yes, Lego.
I was not supposed to say a brand name, sorry. But
It's okay.
but it's just like a game, because then you know, I should put how many percent of that, and if I put that, I add this, and it's really funny. So that's the second part, and in that part we see also we understand what happens during the fusion, during the firing, and what happens also during the colding. When you begin to
Cooling.
reach the top point temperature, and then you begin to go down. Cooling, thank you. What happens also during the cooling down, because our glazes are amorphous substances. It means that they are not solids becoming liquids, becoming gases. They are a little bit like honey, being more and more liquid. If it becomes too liquid, not a good idea, because then you find it on on your shelves. But you have to stop on time. But what happens during the cooling? And how do you allow it to cool? That's very important if you want to obtain matte glazes.
Yes.
And if you want to obtain food-safe matte glazes, there you should really know about chemistry. Because if you have aluminum matte, the proportions are so accurate to obtain that it's much more easy to obtain matte glazes to calcium matte. You understand, I'm speaking about chemistry, but I can use images too. So here it's very quick. And now the third big block is food safe surfaces. And then I showed you in my presentation some part of the program that my husband Eric created. to evaluate the stability of the glazes. So once you can put your formula into that program, you can predict if it will be stable or not. But you understand that to use the program, you need to know block 2.
Right. Yes, I understand. Oh,
But
that's
if
great.
no, if many of you are interested in having that in English, I have to ask Eric to translate everything, or to be besides me to help me find a word like apron or.
Yeah. So Yogita has a question. When you buy ceramic mug or a plate from a shop, how can you be sure that it is food safe if there is nothing written behind the piece for food safety?
When you buy in shops, they only have to be adapted to the local regulation. When I buy something in a shop, no, I don't buy in shops anymore. I make my own. But imagine that I go in a shop in France. It must be adapted to the local regulations in France. It means that they track cobalt, arsenicum, aluminium, lead, and cadmium. In Belgium, only lead and cadmium, but that will be reinforced within 1 year, lowering the limits. When you buy ready-made glazes, you know what the shop retailers call food-safe glazes, ready to use. They must comply with the local regulations. And that's why when we analyze them, we observe sometimes awful leachings of other elements. And that's why we are now really engaged, Eric and I, to let that situation know, because we meet more and more people having the health deeply damaged, sometimes through foodware. And we think it's urgent that ceramic artists and potters themselves take this in consideration and make things evolve and let this be known by the customers. That's why the logo with 28 will be the highest standard of quality.
Yeah, that's a very, we in India, it's a little still unregulated. So we are not 100% sure whether the regulations are followed or is there any laid down rules that one has to follow. But if physically someone has to do, apart from, the leach test, like most of them put half lime or something like that to check whether it is leaching. Apart from that, is there any other test physically that one can do?
Yeah, you can already evaluate with lemon, indeed, and in case it changes color, even very lightly, avoid to use this as foodware, of course. Your eyes show you that there is a problem. But it's not a certification test. It doesn't mean that if it doesn't change color, like I showed in my presentation, there will be no leaching, and you can only be sure of this by two ways. The lab test, which is expensive, it's 140 euro, taxes included, I must say, but it's quite expensive, and that's why the calculation program is so important to us, because it allows people also living in countries with not the same standards or same income levels, or people not having access to labs, to have a way to predict if this will be safe or not. The thing is, you have to know chemistry.
True.
I have
Uh,
a question on the lab tests.
Yes, Amita?
Yeah. So one thing is that what kind of lab tests can I get it done? I understand that your organization has certain parameters and undertakes this kind of role, but since I'm in India and I may not have access to your lab, if I were to approach a lab in India, what kind of tests should I ask them to use for my ceramic glaze? That is one question that I have. And the second one is, if I have a certification for my glaze, but I give it to somebody else to use it in their lab, in their studio, and they might not follow the same parameters that I use in my studio. So then how do I ensure that the person who's using that glaze is also ensuring that there is no leaching? Because if it is underfired, then there will be some amount of leaching.
Yeah.
So
Right,
how does
completely right.
so how does a certificate help such a person?
The certificate is normally for your own use only, but we share the knowledge about when we make analysis of ready-to-use glazes. We share the knowledge between all the participants to the study. You understand? You pay for the study of analysis of glaze A, you will receive glaze B, C, D, E, F, and so on. Because we think that this information is much more accurate because we have no information, in fact, from the shopkeepers. And so this information is already more accurate. Now, people have to be aware that they should respect at least the same temperature and the same kind of layer, if it's thick or not. I think we are all professionals, so those information we can share too. Now about how can you find a label in India? I'm sorry, but I cannot answer that. Or I have to come back and live at least 1 month and a half in India to find labels. Why not? Maybe, but you know what, Amita? You can send me your question by email. Madhur can send you my email address. You send me the question and I can ask Eric if he has acquaintances in India to help you, because I cannot answer here and now.
Sure, that'll be helpful.
Just in continuation with this, Joel, what labs are these? I mean to say, do they particularly test? If I have to figure out a lab, then which lab am I supposed to look?
What I can tell you is that it was not so easy to find a lab to make those tests. There are labs, of course, but I know maybe 5 years ago I made tests in France, and I had to pay only for 2 elements. I had to pay more than 250 euro, And so when I say we make the test at 140 euro for 28 elements, is because we do that without being paid for doing the work. You understand? We do that to have the results to put into our predictable tool, in our Excel tool. And because we want really to contribute to the improvement of knowledge. the lab we are working with is equipped with an ICPMS. It means, how does it work? First, Eric makes himself the extraction. We have a small lab here to make the extraction because it's quite specific. It's a contact during 24 hours at a certain temperature. And then he brings all the liquids to the lab. In fact, he is in the lab now. And he brings all the liquids in the lab, and the lab puts that in a glass, a long glass pipe, let's say, puts the liquid, and when you put light on that tube, you have like a arc-en-ciel, like all kinds of colors that come out. You understand that? Each
Yeah.
element of the Mendeleev table has a specific color that signs the presence.
Okay.
And then how do they do to determine the percentage, how many micrograms are present in the solution? I don't know. I don't know because I don't know how the machine works. And then we have to wait approximately 10 days to receive the numbers.
Okay.
So it's a very specific equipment. We don't have that equipment. It's very specific and expensive. That's why we go to the lab to bring that. But you know, we lower the costs already by doing ourselves the extraction.
Correct. Okay, so Rekha has mentioned that there is a Central Glass and Ceramic Research Institute in Khurja which does these tests. So we do have.
Maybe they have labs like that in institutions like universities. Maybe some of them could be interested in searching on that matter, and that would be really great because to extend our researches and share the knowledge and go further with this, because also we are not eternal, you know.
Anyone
Are there,
else?
yes. Other questions?
Okay. Yeah, I think no more
Hello.
I have a question. This
Yeah.
is
Yes,
Sandhya.
Sandhya?
I wanted to ask, some of us do not make our own glazes and buy commercially made glazes, and some of them are labeled like being lead-free, food safe and all. So are there any additional precautions we should be taking when using commercially made
Yeah.
glazes?
Yes, you should, because the major problems happen with low temperature glazes, low temperature commercial glazes. There are less problems, but less for high temperature commercial glazes. So already the first test you should make is, of course, the lemon test or the vinegar test. That's definitely the first you should do. Another test that you can do is using a mixer. You know, the mixer, when I make the pancakes, I use a mixture with two things making noise like this. Well, you can put that on your glaze during 30 seconds. You will have a thin layer of metal. Then you clean that and you observe how the glaze reacts. If it's completely damaged or cracked, okay, it has not a good mechanical resistance. You can also put your glaze in the dishwasher if you have one for at least 50 expositions. And then you should keep a test outside the not having that treatment, and then the test in your dishwasher. You make a small pieces and you forget it in your dishwasher for weeks, and then you compare. But with if there is some kind of visual change, you know that the alkali of the dishwasher attacks the thin coat on the surface of the glaze, giving access to the lower codes. Those are
Thank you
the,
so much.
sorry?
Thank you so much. That was very useful to know.
That's already, yeah, the homemade tests that you can make
Okay.
not expensive tests. It doesn't, it gives not 100% guarantee, but it will already help to eliminate quite a lot of commercial glazes.
Okay. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? I hear that Eric is coming back, so if there are very technical questions, it's maybe the moment.
Yeah.
I was asked if we know a label making the tests in India.
Huh.
Yeah,
could
take
we-
my chair and I take a second one.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. No, for that specific question, I have no answer, of course. No, I don't know any lab in India.
I said we have to go back and
Sure.
investigate.
Okay. Mando, you just have to invite us, you know?
Unmute Madhur, please.
Vinay, another question?
Oh,
Uh,
nice to see you, Eric. And you have to come back. Hi.
Hi.
Any questions? Any more questions, guys?
no.
No.
Oh, okay, then I hope you really learned quite a lot. I will explain to Eric that he is asked to make such maybe such blocks 1, 2, 3 in English
Yes.
for you guys. And yes, I see who could be interested. Maybe you can show with your thumb or send a thumb. Even if you are, if I don't see your photo.
Where are
Well,
you?
What's easy is if you have the email address of Joelle, you just send her a mail,
Yes.
and then we can communicate further about your needs and what we can do for you.
Thank
Yes,
you
and-
so much. It
And
was
maybe plan another meeting to speak about that and who could, with the people potentially interested. And yeah, we'll see that.
Sure.
many thanks,
You're
Joelle,
welcome.
Eric, many thanks for this wonderful and so informative session. We
Mm.
all became healthier already.
Yeah, we hope to participate to the improvement of that matter in all the
Yes.
studios.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
That's it then, guys. Good night. Lots of
Bye-bye.
love. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Welcome, bye.
Very interesting.